Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 31st audio chat on the Q News Patriot Rumble series. I am the Q News Patriot. My name is SG Anon. Today, I get to have a very fascinating and in-depth conversation with each of you out there, with Miss Natalie and Mr. Greg joining us today from Alpha-Omega Biomediceuticals about a topic that's very, very close to my heart. When I woke up, just over 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago now, it was because of the things that we were ingesting. It was because research in the course of my academic studies had led me to a realization that commonly accepted poisons, things that are well known to cause all sorts of MSDS, interferences in the human body, are actually added to a great deal of food, a great deal of our supplements, and of course pumped into our water supply and oftentimes our air. How many of you are aware, for example, that titanium dioxide and magnesium silicate are common ingredients found in vitamins? How many of you are aware that hydrogenated oils, artificial coloring dyes, PCBs, lead, mercury, and various other poisons are also found in many of those same supplements, vitamins, and foods that you ingest each and every day? The reason that we've talked about on this program for what agenda could drive such heinousness and such nefariousness in our essential supplies, in our food and in our water supplies, ties back, I think, to the idea of our spiritual capability and our spiritual power, who we really are, how connected to God we really are, what type of beings we really are, right? While we have carbon in our genome, and carbon, of course, allows us to interface with everything that is organic in this world, our DNA is photonic and light-based. So we're a deeper, more powerful being than any of us understand. And so there is reason, if you have an agenda of evil and suppression, to attempt to hide that power, that capability, and those anatomical realities from the mass populations. And that's exactly what we've lived. Today, Natalie and Greg are going to help us unpack a little bit about that, and also to discuss how they got into this, really what amounts to a spiritual war, in a way that I think is going to encourage a lot of the spiritual capabilities of we the people out there back into a state of and attempting to ignite at a higher level. Nutrition, nutrients, the things that the body intakes and how well the body functions is directly correlative to the utilization of our energy, which of course flows to us from that spirit place. And I believe this is one of the reasons Natalie and Greg have joined us today. Without further ado, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you so very much for having us here, SG.
So we're going to get into, your all's work and the things that you've been doing with the supplement industry and attempting to sort of change over the lens of wellness and change how people understand their own power from a nutritional standpoint. But first, I thought we would sort of step back and discuss perhaps what we would call your own awakening experiences, or your own life journey that compelled each of you into the traction that we're on now. Do you care to sort of divulge for our audience out there, maybe go into some detail about, where you all came from and why you're doing the things you're doing?
Yeah, sure. So my awakening process happened very early in life. And it was all based on a major health issue that my aunt was facing. My aunt raised me along with my grandmother, and she was diagnosed with primary progressive multiple sclerosis. And for anyone who has experience with that, the outcomes are not very positive. And at that time growing up, the doctors really didn't offer any solutions. In fact, it was really dismal what they were projecting. And my aunt was a very strong-willed, very faith-driven woman. And she just was not willing to accept what the medical establishment was giving her as alternatives, because every medication that they had was just going to cause more harm and not do anything really to suppress the disease or reverse the disease. So my aunt and I, me being a young child, went on a journey to try to discover natural ways, alternative therapies that we could utilize to try to improve the quality of her life, slow down or halt the progression of the disease. And so, like I said, I started looking for alternatives as a child, recognizing that the medical system was entirely broken and there really was no hope. There were just Band-Aids to cover up problems, but not actually cause a healing response. So through our own discovery process, we found ways to actually improve the quality of her life and really slow down a very devastating disease. So yeah, my journey started with the medical industry, but it very quickly progressed to politics and environmental concerns. And, we could just see that there was just this trajectory that we were on that did not correlate with things getting better. Everything seemed like it was really wrapped in together. So yeah, my mission started early in life, and it's just, my mission is to help people heal or to improve quality of life, because there's always a way that you can improve outcomes. And my husband, Greg, he kind of got dragged along with me, especially when it came to looking at politics and just how broken those systems were, and educating him and throwing him into Federal Reserve issues and things of that nature, and forced vaccinations. And so he's kind of come along for the ride. And thank God, my husband has been open and receptive, because, you want your partner to be with you on this journey.
Yeah, and my whole adult life has been evolved around wellness and health and fitness. I grew up in athletics my whole life, got into personal training, nutrition, and all that after school, and progressed from there. I've done quite a few research studies into the supplements, and that really what woke me up and opened my eyes to the ingredients in the supplements and what they are and what they are not, and always looking for better, healthier, cleaner ingredients and supplements. And we've been blessed through our journey to be hooked up with some incredible formulators and bring up products to the marketplace that are basically the evolution of supplements. We've not seen anything like them. And it's amazing what our supplements do for the body and how they help heal and repair the body.
Really, it's sort of beautiful that we're getting to have this conversation at this point in time, because we've gone through this period as humanity really for the last 7 to 10 years, I would say, in a public facing way. We've gone through this realization that there is a new or a different, maybe an added layer, dimension of reality that we never knew existed, that has been talked about sort of nebulously for the better part of a century. And that's the quantum reality, right? The quantum field, frequency medicine, things of that nature. And what I think is so critically important, and what is so synchronous about the timing with our conversation today, is that part of connecting back to that field in a more conscious way, because we're never truly disconnected, right? But we can be, pretty significantly pinched off. And being able to open those pathways and those connectivity channels back up is not only a mental game and an emotional game. It's not only a spiritual, journey. It also involves the things that we put into our body temple. And it really is, a temple for our soul here in this world, because we're on a spiritual experience, a spiritual journey, a walk through a physical reality, but we are eternal beings at that core and at that soul level. And so actually, I want to get into, if we can, to pivot from that into the difference between the types of supplements that you all are referring to, that you've been researching, involved with the development and the bringing to the market of, versus the supplements that are pushed by, what we would call agents of BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, right? And we talked very briefly in the beginning of our conversation a moment ago about some of the things that are in there. But outside of the difference in the ingredients, what is so significant about this evolution of supplements that you all have sort of been pioneering and bringing to the fore?
Sure. Everything that we focus on is based on regenerative medicine. So everything we do support organic life. That means we only use natural ingredients within our supplementation line. Because unfortunately, within the supplement world, most of the supplements out there are going to be comprised of synthetic vitamins, synthetic minerals, that really the body can't assimilate. The body doesn't know what to do with them. So normally the liver is going to be taxed extremely hard while trying to utilize or process these things. So everything that we do is natural. Everything is regenerative. Everything is designed to reverse damage. So while we support and enhance supplementation, everything's designed to reverse damage. So we have a pretty extensive line that only has a handful of supplements, because we don't feel the need to microdose things or break things down to the smallest common denominator. We actually try to make everything that is multifaceted. So one supplement typically replaces 7 to 10 different supplements. So everything is quite robust. Everything is at an efficacious and clinical dose. But only using natural constituents, no binders, no fillers, no excipients, because we want you to get the most from the supplementation.
So just to make sure that I'm breaking it down for the audience out there, and I want to be sure also that my comprehension is where it needs to be as well. The binders and the reagents and things that you refer to that are omitted from your all's formula, in place of, or taken the place of, with these naturally derived, organic constituents, those are materials that, or particulates that are harmful to the body. Yes. Am I correct to understand that the things that help bind some of the fluids together, for example, in various vitamins that are peddled out there in big box stores, those are not absorbable, right? And so does that create a toxic effect on the body?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the ingredients are toxic. So, we're trying to keep it as clean and usable as possible. So because why denature something? There's no need for it. And what you often see is man trying to essentially replace all things natural and produced by God. So we stick to only utilizing natural substances. That way we don't have those negative consequences from using chemical binders or preservatives or things of that nature.
As I've pulled up your all's website here to sort of showcase out to the audience where they can find you online and what it looks like. It's www.biomediceuticals.com. And I'm just going to read a line out here for everyone. Every ingredient in the formulations undergoes rigorous scrutiny to comprehend mechanism, function, and research, and it's crafted based on peer-reviewed clinical data. Really quick before I move on to our next question and our next topic for our discussion today, I want to ask, as far as the peer-reviewed clinical data, if we have some really hardcore Anons out there watching this broadcast, where can they find some peer data I've used to fit in various compilations?
Links to the research that was done on there'll be a drop down and you'll be able to get access to those papers. So we are partnered up, Getting Products is so committed to only producing natural, clean, safe ingredients and products at the highest degree. And the testing that they've done has been quite impressive, especially the blood work that they've observed. And one of our formulators, also creates custom blends for people who are dealing with significant health issues. A lot of like cancer patients, people dealing with different toxicity issues. So he's been operating in this space for quite some time. It's a naturopathic doctor and a formulator and chemist.
Remarkable. And, speaking of the cancer issue, that was where I wanted sort of to go with our next point of discussion here, because when we talk about the healing of the body, we talk about the limitation of the spread of disease, the mitigation of effects that are caused from the environment that we live in, the toxins and poisons that we ingest. Cancerism is one of those conversations that I think inevitably comes up. And one of the largest feeders of cancer, and it's becoming sort of well known, even in the peer-reviewed data now, and it's been known for a while, but it's not received nearly as much notoriety, is of course the sugar industry, sucralose, the overproduction of the glycemic index, the throttling of the pancreas's ability to regulate, blood sugar functionality within the body. And so, sugar itself and various other, poisons that we ingest, but sugar in a very massive way is a component that is responsible for that spiritual suppression of mankind that we sort of talked about earlier in our conversation. And so, I found it really fascinating when you all and I were talking prior to our show today about your breakout into a more nutritional focused angle that's not so much focused in exercise and wellness, but is more focused in just replacing some of the basic, almost like household amenities that we incorporate into our daily routine, because we know that we're creatures of habit. We know that it's much easier to go for that convenience. And at the same time, we want to be able to bring convenience with effective change, with healthy products, with things that encourage the body to be more homeostatically balanced, not in a state of constant inflammation. And so you all had told me about something called a nature sweets, which is a sweetener that you all have put together that's entirely naturally derived from the earth and from various organic material that's not harmful to the human body, produces no glycemic response within the body. In other words, it's not metabolized in the same fashion that sugar in a traditional sense is metabolized in the body, and yet it still activates the taste receptors. It still activates the pleasurable experience of having something that is a bit sweet, and that can be a bit comforting, I think, for a lot of folks out there, especially if they've lived any amount of life with adding sugar to things like tea or coffee, or other various products that they use and that they incorporate into their daily routine. So I want to spend a moment and ask you, specifically about that particular supplement, that particular replacement that you all have come up with, because from my angle and from where I'm at, most of your line and most of the things that you have are going to be primarily focused towards those individuals that are taking things like fitness, wellness, personal responsibility and accountability for their health day to day into a more active approach. But yet this particular release, this particular formulation targets, I think, a much broader segment of the population that really just wants to gradually pull themselves away from this nutritional matrix.
Yeah.
Yeah, this product SG is really getting ready to disrupt the sugar industry as we know it. This product was developed by one of our formulators to prevent his kids from ingesting so much sugar and give them the sweetness and the flavor that they want, replacing that sugar. This product is a functional sweetener. It's the first of its kind that we know of. It is a pre and probiotic. It's got 4 billion live cultures a serving. It is a detoxifier with the nanotech delivery of the folic acid. It will increase your protein absorption by up to 30%. It will also regulate your blood glucose levels, your A1C levels, gut health support. So you're getting a ton of health benefits all within one. And it is a flavor enhancer. So anything you put it in, such as your coffee, your teas, it's really going to bring the flavor out and smooth it out through the tasting of it. But there will be no aftertaste or bitter taste like you get with the stevia or some of the other sugar replacements that are out there currently. So it truly is amazing. It really is, going to disrupt the whole sugar industry. And that's our goal, to do that, to give people a healthier choice and let them still have the, enjoyment of the sugar taste or, that sweetness.
It's an incredible part of the human journey to preserve, I think, the convenience, the pleasantries, the niceties that all of us out there are, very accustomed to and sort of, I would say even entitled to in some regards here in the Western world because of the lives that we've been living generationally and the development of, human society. But to be able to preserve some of that to the greatest extent possible, export that nicety to the rest of the world and do no harm physically to one another, I think that's a really sacred mission. And I just want to say, I think, thank you for doing that, because it is going to be a major component, this entire reshaping of the nutritional industry, the entire reshaping of those common ingredients that we utilize, right? The bleached flour, the processed sugar, the various additives that are in, simple raw goods that we utilize to create foods and drinks for ourselves and, to host different party events and to have social interaction and enjoyment with one another. All of that has to be reshaped also. And it takes salvos like this and creative out of the box thinking, I think, which is what you all have exhibited here to really move that needle forward. So thank you for that.
Yeah, as you had mentioned, SG, we anticipate this being a household item in the next 12 to 18 months. The traction that this has gained, this one particular, product that we have, we haven't even really technically launched it, as we are in the process of doing, and the traction that this one product has gained just in the last couple months has been unbelievable. So it's really exciting to see what it's going to do and what the near future holds for this product.
Yeah, so one place that we just landed in was the Metabolic Health Summit, and that conference was essentially filled with academics, clinicians, practitioners who are trying to find safe alternatives for their patient population and just for the masses to be able to turn to something other than just another sugar replacement. There are 50 different options now when you go to the grocery store, but nothing really serves a purpose other than just a substitute for sugar. So as Greg was saying, with the list of health benefits that are also attached to this sweetener, we're trying to make sure that the consumer has an increased value added to utilizing a product like this, but also to protecting systems of their body and not causing any kind of negative health consequences. So all the ingredients that are in there are actually very protective to the entire system. So we're trying to help balance out the gut health issues that is just running amok across our nation. And also too, the fact that we all need to be proactive with detoxifying our systems because we live in a toxic world. So unfortunately, toxic internal environment, toxic external environment is going to lead to negative health outcomes. So we're trying to be as proactive as possible by addressing those issues, even with something as simple as a sweetener.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. And I don't think it could be better said. My last question, I think, is going to deal with, where people go from here, how they support your all's work, how they can contribute if they would like to, and how they can get in touch with you all. We have the website, biomediceuticals.com. How else can people find and get in contact with you all to either support your work, endorse your work, or partner with you?
Yeah, sure. So I do have a sign up form on the page. If somebody is interested, we're getting a lot of contact from clinicians, as I said, who are looking to be able to offer this to other people. But anybody is welcome to write in using those forms. And if they're looking for just more personal information for themselves, if they have a small business of their own and they would like to incorporate being able to get this and offer it to their audience group, we're more than happy to accommodate anybody just to try to help get more options out there for people. We are often traveling the country, not only in athletic capacity, but also to health freedom conferences, really trying to get out there with our peers who are in the same vein. So we can be found on social media. We're not huge on social media because, well, we just don't particularly care for it. But we are on social media at Biomediceuticals and also at Nature Sweets with a Z. And our phone number is posted there also on the website. So anybody is welcome to call us anytime, text us, email us, or use the contact forms on the page. And again, if somebody is interested, we'll gladly set them up so that they are able to have a greater access to this product to get it out to their audience also.
Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. And I hope you've enjoyed very much listening to our conversation today, because it is conversations like this and being willing to stand up for what is principled and true and right for all of humanity, right? It is those conversations and those dispositions that will lead us to a better earth, a new earth, and an earth that is certainly more reflective of the love of God and the balance that we're supposed to have both with one another and with nature. Natalie, Greg, thank you very much for joining us today on QNP. Everyone out there, this is SG Anon. I'll be back with each of you again soon on the Q News Patriot. Thanks.
Thank you. Stay
Bye-bye.
blessed.